Brittney's justice was finally served. Griner in the most vicious manner imaginable, following her bigoted remarks on Caitlin Clark, became popular and the WNBA attempted to sweep. Putting it under the rug, karma just came through. Indiana Fever's ideal punishment and the Atlanta Dream performed.
Indiana Fever and Atlanta Dream played. Indiana Fever is where Caitlin Clark plays. Atlanta Dream is where Brittney Griner plays. Now you tell me what it looks like Brittney Griner is saying here.
For the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
For a little bit of context, this was in the fourth quarter after Brittney Griner fouled out against Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever would go on to win by 5. Now I'm going to tell you what I think she said. Let's play it back. Looks to me like she is saying trash and then calling Caitlin Clark a bleep white girl. Just a reminder, this is who Joe Biden traded for the Russian merchant of death. So many WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark so much when she is the best thing that could have happened to the league. And she's not the best thing that happened to the league because she's white.
The league that gave her weeks of protection recently made a choice that alters everything. Griner's career may be coming to an end. And to be honest, she merited everything of what will happen, which will be most fulfilling. Observing Griner suffer the repercussions for observing these WNBA players or her racist remarks, develop a backbone at last and truly enforce its own regulations at the time. Everyone had been anticipating this moment. Brittney Griner has arrived and is set to discover that decisions have repercussions in the most agonizing manner conceivable after the WNBA spent weeks acting as though they didn't. Observe how she attacked Caitlin Clark with racism. The league office recently released a bombshell that is causing a lot of shock. In the world of basketball, the same company that went above and above to shield Griner from responsibility has been compelled to act at last, and the outcomes are completely disastrous.
If you want to get people never to watch the WNBA, this is an amazing way to do it. If the league is going to be rooted in this sort of nastiness with regard to its only real star, good luck to them. Well, folks, the left has a real problem in the United States. They've spent the last several decades talking about how racism is an endemic problem in American life. And there's a problem with that problem, which is there's not enough.
Let's begin with the real cause of. In this instantaneous karma event, Griner was captured on camera mouthing as clearly as day, after fouling, trash effing white chick, losing a match to Clark in the Indiana Fever.
Griner was caught on tape during a game with the Indiana Fever, dropping racial slurs against Caitlin Clark, and pretty obviously doing so.
Ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
And it doesn't take a lot of genius to lip read Brittney Griner, whose voice, by the way, is about as low as mine is, calling her trash and an effing white girl. Now, of course, if Caitlin Clark had ever suggested the same in reverse, using black as opposed to white in that sentence, that'd be the end of her WNBA career. But Brittney Griner is going strong. It's totally fine.
The video was unquestionably, the lip reading was accurate by a number of specialists, and the racist goal was clear to everyone with working eyes, but rather than instant repercussions, the WNBA went entering complete damage control mode to safeguard the league's valued experienced player. That initiated inquiries into fictitious racism from Indiana Fever supporters. Selective blindness appeared out of nowhere when one of their own celebrities was apprehended, being genuinely racist on national. They disregarded the evidence on television, rejected the worries, and hoped the controversy would just go away, but karma has a method of ensuring the truth reveals itself, and Griner's defense. The racket just crashed into amazing style.
What else happened to everybody else?
I mean, I know there's always consequence to actions. You know, what I did, I already know that I was going to get, some time for that. And, I respect, I got 3 games. Okay. Not disputing that at all. Do I think that it shouldn't have been 3 across the board? Boom, everybody involved in it, 3-3-3. I think that would have been, honestly, fair. I would have been happy today with that. Not today. And it's not because of my suspension. I'll take ownership.
The suspension of the contract that Griner isn't just about one hit incident, it concerns a trend of actions that the league is no longer able to. This is the same player, so disregard or excuse them, who voiced their displeasure with a ruckus from the crowd because, in reality, spectators were watching games for. Previously, this individual was saved from being imprisoned abroad, only to make bigoted remarks thereafter. Remarks regarding other American athletes. The ingratitude and entitlement have eventually managed to catch up with her.
Griner is playing a game, and this is what Brittney Griner calls. I was not going to comment on any of this stuff until this took place. Watch what she says. The entire internet has reacted to this. Here's Brittney Griner. They're playing against the Indiana Fever, and look what she's saying. Go ahead, Rob.
For the ticky-tack almost that we were talking about earlier today.
Well, that pretty much sounds like trash effing white girl.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
So the whole market reacts to this with Brittney Griner, right? And then the other quote, Rob, then I'm going to wrap this up and then I'm going to go to Adam. Put the quote of Brittney Griner, what she said about the NBA. This is so funny how all this stuff works out, right? She says, this is from Brittney. Every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there, watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. It's called a freaking game that they pay you money to play. Don't play the game.
The monetary. The ramifications of this suspension are incredibly cruel to Griner. She's not. She is simply losing game checks, sponsorship and endorsement opportunities, bargains, and the possibility of repairing her reputation following this dispute. Her return home after a prisoner swap cost the U.S. a convicted arms dealer, and she hasn't responded at all. But lack of appreciation and animosity for the nation that provided her with every money she defeats serves as a reminder of how much she discarded in a fit of racist rage. However, here's why this karma is so ideal. The WNBA's choice is made at precisely the point at which they are unable to no longer have the funds to defend troublesome. Caitlin Clark's players have brought unparalleled income and attention to the league and casual supporters who learned about women's basketball through. Clark will not put up with racism, actions of seasoned athletes who ought to understand the business case for. At last, accountability surpassed the protection politics. The suspension. The announcement caused instant shockwaves via social media, as the majority of believed that Griner could not be touched. She had endured the racial remarks, the grievances on the fervor of the fans, and the overall entitlement mindset that's defined her whole professional life. The fact that the repercussions eventually caught up with. This demonstrates that even players who are shielded have restrictions on how much they can escape, with the victimization shield that eventually shielded her for a long time broken.
By Adam Johnson. BG, right now you have 10 points, 5 rebounds. We see the Atlanta Dream as being very... Right now she's talking to the refs about holding. We're going to send it back to you guys. Very important question.
The moment of this suspension is especially catastrophic since it occurs immediately after the WNBA is attempting to take advantage of the expansion that Clark has brought about sponsors, because TV networks are unwilling to be connected to gamers that make racist remarks on national television. The league office at last recognized that it was costing them extra to protect Griner. Instead of punishing her, money talks and Griner's discriminatory actions were starting too costly to disregard the agreement. Language that made this possible. It seemed that suspension was always present, buried in the typical player contracts, that no one took the time to attentively read. The WNBA had the authority to intervene. They simply decided not to use it all along, until the strain on finances got too fantastic to overlook, which makes their first. This makes the inaction much more unacceptable. Last penalty that is even more fulfilling. Although justice is still served when it is delayed, the Griner was made much sweeter by the delay. Supporters and teammates are rushing to support her, but their arguments are flawed. Under investigation, they're asserting it seems unjust that the suspension there was conflicting evidence and that veteran athletes are entitled to more thoughtfulness, but none of those justifications alter the fact that she was apprehended, making offensive remarks regarding the biggest star in the league on live TV. The video proof is unmistakable and nothing can be changed by spin. Everyone witnessed firsthand the Clark's fans' response has been extremely favorable due to they have been calling for responsibility. They observed the WNBA protecting them for weeks. Griner, while concurrently looking into fictitious racism from fans of Fever, this suspension seems to justice being administered at last following a era of blatant prejudice and double standards. The basketball's relief. There is a sense of community because people were beginning to doubt the league's adherence to its declared principles. The standard that this suspension establishes is enormous for the WNBA's future, sending a notification indicating no player is superior. Repercussions irrespective of their status or prior league contributions. That's precisely the type of responsibility that professional sports companies must uphold. Credibility with sponsors and supporters, the culture of giving some people preferential treatment. Finally, gamers are being put to the test in a significant manner. The media's coverage of the suspension of Griner has been especially vicious since it compels journalists should address their own prejudice. Numerous outlets covered this topic, first minimized or disregarded the discriminatory remarks completely, and now they have to clarify the reason they weren't more aggressive in requesting responsibility. The credibility deficit from the start between fan interaction and media coverage. Never before have expectations been so clear. The effects on Griner's finances go beyond more than just her WNBA deal. Deals for endorsements are being quietly. Speaking engagements that have been canceled are being withdrawn, and prospective earnings opportunities are disappearing, and the price of her discriminatory remarks will keep up with her for years, which is precisely what ought to occur when public figures beyond these boundaries corporate America has. There is no room for racist behavior, particularly when it's captured on camera. Suspension also reveals the extent to which the no space for hate campaign by the WNBA was simply meaningless marketing jargon. Started this project with excellent fanfare, then promptly disregarded the most blatant transgression of their own declared values, the reality that it required external force to compel action demonstrates that their dedication to these ideals were never deep. Even by itself, hypocrisy is astounding. Standards for professional sports. The background of prisoner exchanges makes it is even more satisfying that Griner was defeated, because it draws attention to the lack of thankfulness, the entitlement that brought about this situation. In actuality, the U.S. exchanged to safeguard her, a convicted guns dealer, freedom, and she responded by making remarks about other Americans that are racist. To be honest, that degree of ingratitude is stunning and elevates her current. Poetic justice is what suffering feels like. Influence on other WNBA athletes is important since they're recognizing that defense from league authorities isn't assured. Players who have previously escaping punishment for undesirable behavior are now unsure if they will be the next. The accountability